Hello guys and welcome to a new Wargame Red Dragon video today by me Vulcan. Today I have for you a 1 versus 1 on Straight to the Point. This is actually a 2v2 map and it does have sea enabled, so we are going to be seeing some boats throughout this game, which is something that a lot of you have been asking for. But either way, 1v1 versus Bolt Source. You can find him at the Saucy Network on YouTube. And I'm going to leave a channel link in the description. Make sure you go check him out. He does some really awesome live commentary gameplays of Wargame, and he did in fact do this one as a live commentary, and you can go and see it from his point of view on his channel, so make sure you definitely go check that out. Now I'm using a Chinese deck today and Bolt Source is using a Japanese deck, so it's quite interesting contention going on here. I've recently edited my Chinese deck and I was a little bit more confident about playing it than I was with my previous setup, but unfortunately Bolt Source seemed to point out the flaws, and ultimately I was very reckless throughout the game, but we'll see how it goes. Now, as you can see, I've got some WZ551s. These are really interesting APCs. They're exactly the same ones that you find in Battlefield 2, if you've played that, as the Chinese. And they have got Tanker Shashao in them, which are really nice recoilless rifle infantry, which can fire at both ground targets like infantry and APCs and tanks. And they're very good at taking care of that kind of thing. And then the WZ551 has a nice autocannon, which is pretty powerful and has a nice fire rate, but can be a bit inaccurate sometimes. Then we got a BJ212ZC here, which is basically just a recon jeep. That's going to be heading over to the left side here in case he decides to go and land in Gulf or whatever. I wasn't planning to exploit the left side at all or any of the sea reinforcements on this side unless I had to, because he decided to take Juliet. Then I have an MO1, which was originally intending to head over to this cliff line here, just in case, again, any sort of flanking attempts, because this is a very large map, it's very important that you keep your flanks protected, but in my case I just tend to do that using recon rather than actual expensive units, just to make sure that I can manage my forces in the front line a bit better. Here you can see the use of ZSD-63Cs, which are just APCs, and they have some nice anti-air manpad squads in them. And I'm basically splitting them up here rather than keeping them as two-man squads, so that I can specifically place them in areas on the left side here near Charlie. Now I've got an Mi-8T with a command infantry squad heading over to Delta. That will drop off those into here. Then we got some two Mi-8Ts with Luzanduai. They are going to press forwards towards Foxtrot, or at least that was the idea. I've got two Z9A TY90s, the incredibly powerful infrared AA choppers. A ZTQ-62G, one of my favourite recon tanks in the game. We got a ZTZ-85, which is the 125-point Chinese tank. Then we've got a HQ7, two of those, and a HQ61 for enemy air presence. So we have a lot of AA at the beginning, and that possibly did make my army a little bit unbalanced at the start. And as I am relying a lot on like AA and tanks to get points at the start, which can be a bit risky if the enemy brings in ATGMs. So we've got my ZSDs going into their positions and dropping off HN5Bs as soon as they get there. Then we've got the BJ212 quickly fast moved into Charlie to capture that. We've got a BJ212 staying at Bravo, and then we've got the Zahuiban going to Delta. I moved up my Mi-8Ts because he's captured Foxtrot. I wasn't confident about pushing forwards the Mi-8Ts towards that, because it was likely that he would have that defended. So if we go to my point of view now, you can see that my first mistake. These units here, HQ61, HQ7, way too far forwards. I moved the whole lot of them the ZTSs, the ZTQs and the ZTZs with the AA. Unfortunately, because HQ7s and HQ61s are really fast on road, they got way too far ahead and it left them out very far in the open, and therefore they got sprayed by HGM fire at the start of the game, which wasn't what exactly I was planning. Now, move forward these Z9As to see exactly what happened in terms of him getting a command infantry squad to Foxtrot very quickly. I didn't expect that he would have all of these APC units here already, though. Because I knew that to get a command vehicle there that quick, he would have had to use a helicopter, which is why I moved up the Z9A so quickly, to basically try and destroy anything that I came across. Unfortunately for me, the Z9A takes a shot from the left. There is a really nice placed Tan-Sam short arrow units in there, which managed to shoot down my Z9A for 90 points, which is pretty horrific for me. We got my WZ551s pushing against Nana-san Cheekies, and with the help of the Shumats, well, the WZs don't stand a chance. Now I've got my own ZTSs placed on the tree line here, and to basically help out my tank that was pressing up here, I decided to bring over my Mi-8Ts, but his unit composition and the way in which he managed to get his infantry into these buildings very quickly, it put me at a huge disadvantage at the start of the game. I possibly should have focused a lot more on infantry at the start rather than using tanks, but I really like using tanks at the start of the game because it does often catch people out. Now my tank of Shashao are taking crossfire from the Hachikai Shikis, and Bolsorts decides to bring in an F4E Kai, which is a really nice bombing aircraft. Unfortunately, actually misses his targets, and I managed to get a shot on that and actually destroy it. And I also follow up with another kill onto the F4EJ that was following up. So that's 2 aircraft destroyed thanks to my heavy use of AA at the start of the game. Unfortunately, it looks like they've all run out of ammo though, and therefore I was very quick to get some cargo up at the start of the game and start to resupply those. Now, funnily enough, he manages to destroy these Mi-8Ts with no problem, and my tanks quickly die to the Chumat squads hidden in this forest. And I'm currently being beaten back to hell. So now it's time for the sea battle. We got the Giant Goose coming in. I knew that pressing forwards with more tanks was only going to get them killed. He's using Chumats, and they are very strong HDGMs. And without a decent enough recon to spot those out, I'm only going to be leaving my tanks as sitting ducks against those. So I'm bringing in some J72Ms, and basically they are really elite aircraft because you can bring in 3 at elite status, and they're really good fighters that come with autocannons and some infrared missiles, which are really accurate when they are vetted up. So here come the Giant Goose. I'm bringing in a couple just so that they're a little bit more defended against enemy air attacks. The more ships you have, the better most of the time, so that they can produce their own anti-air screen when enemy anti-ship aircraft come in. And now, knowing that I'm going to need some recon for these Giant Goose, I decide to bring over my MI1 from the backside here. So you can see I have set up a small defense, some HN5B squads just defending the left side with the use of this recon Jeep. But not too much on the left side. Probably could have easily exploited that if he decided to attack over here with amphibious troops or whatever. Because I saw so many troops in the centre, I knew that it was unlikely to be the case. So bringing the MI1 over wasn't going to be too much of an issue. Now a couple of squads were spotted here with the Giant Goose. We managed to get a couple of nice shots onto those using the dual PJ33A cannons on the front of these Giant Goose. 100mm they have. spot a Hachukai Shiki in here. And if we just quickly jump to the neutral perspective, you'll see what I'm basically putting these Jangus up against. So there's a couple of Chumat squads in here firing HGMs at my Jangus. Now the Jangus actually are incredibly vulnerable, or ships in general are incredibly vulnerable to HGM squads because they can't use their anti-ship missile equipment to fire against them. But there we go, managed to get the MI1 forwards enough to spot the Chumat squads and take those out. And now my MI1's being fired at by some Tansam short arrows. I managed to get one of the Jangus to fire onto those and managed to kill one as my MI1 makes a retreat. The Jangu still taking shots from this Chumat squad on the right side. So now I'm sending my MI1 over to go and find that. And knowing that my Jangus are going to be pretty vulnerable here if I only have 2 of them, I decide now to bring in a 3rd, just as my MI1 gets shot down by the Tansam short arrow. Finally manages to hit that and basically makes me blind. Now we do have this ZTQ-62G, which is a really nice recon tank, sitting on this left side, which will uncover anything that tries to attack me from Foxtrot. But it's not good enough, especially with the line of sight issues with all these trees dotted around, to spot out anything for my Jangus. So I'm trying to advance these ZTSs into this forest here. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm pretty sure that the ZTSs would be able to deal with any APCs that they came across. And I know that most of the infantry is currently occupied within these buildings. So they managed to get across just fine after the Chumat squads take a few shots. I'm basically sending over this Mi-8T to go and have a go at those Chumat squads. But I was a bit naive to thinking that that would be able to do just that, as it flies straight into some Tansam short arrows and these Hachukai Shikis. So my ZTSs are moving forwards, and the Chumat squad, after missing every shot onto these ZTSs, manages to get 1 shot onto my ZTZ 125 point tank. Really pissed me off, that did. really unlucky. And now his Hachukai Shikis with the incredible 35mm guns managed to destroy both of my 50 point tanks with their 30 point APCs. Really incredible there. Now I've got another MI1 coming up to help out with the recon on this side. And I've got this Jangu here, which was the reinforcing Jangu. Now what you'll see is that I start to use this Jangu to move it to the right. And the reason I did that was because I thought that if I would be able to destroy anything that was defending Alpha, I would be able to attack it with a helicopter assault. That was the plan. I have a reasonable amount of helicopter troops, the Liu Zhanduai and the Li Zhuan, and the idea was that they would be able to press into Alpha and basically stop him from capturing it. Now, as you can see at this point, the enemy has 1 command squad here and nothing else. They got these Nanasan Shikis coming in, which are just HGMs within those, which are probably Chumats. And if I just used this MI1 and just spotted out the Honbu Han, I could have just killed that CV unit. But this is one thing that I continue to go on about in Wargame. It's the fear of the unknown that really does set you back. And now, just about spotting all of these anti-ship missiles coming in from these wonderful aardvarks, my Jangu that I send over to the right to basically pepper anything that comes into Alpha, left out in the open. Bolt Source makes a massive move and destroys that with 3 anti-ship missile aircraft. It really took me by surprise. I didn't expect him to save for that many anti-ship aircraft, and therefore I basically shut my pants. So I was like, that Jangu isn't going anywhere anymore. he's heading straight back to the company of the other. And with those all getting away without me even managing to shoot one down, it's really bad for me. So I'm going to have to reinforce these as quickly as possible by bringing in another Jangu to create that anti-air screen that I was talking about. And I'm also going to have to make sure that my anti-air on the left side is in position to help out should the enemy try to use that many aircraft again. So since the game wasn't really going anywhere, and Boltsource has managed to already capture all of his sectors on his side of the river, I decided to bring in a BJ212 to capture Echo, and that would put me more evenly on the same income as him so that I wouldn't fall too far behind. Now, one thing that I was really surprised about was that he didn't decide to contest Echo by placing a CV on the other side, and that would have been very easy for him because I have no presence across this river. He could have just simply denied me those extra reinforcement points, which would have made my navy a lot weaker. And now that I've seen the air attack from Boltsource, I've got the continuous presence of the J72M, and the reason for that is because I've got 3 of them, and they can stay on the field for a very long time because they have a really nice amount of fuel. Gives them really good autonomy and means they'll always be there when they're needed to defend. Another Jangu coming in. That will make 4 Jangus. I actually think I have 2 cards of Jangus on this deck. And the reason for that is because not only are they pretty good at taking out enemy ships with their nice 100mm cannons, but they have the 100mm cannons to use against ground targets. You see the 4,000 meter range there manages to destroy a unit that was all the way over here, thanks to the clear line of sight. Now, one thing that I should have done that I didn't do, and something that I realized very late into the game, was using the Jangus for fire position rather than simply letting them see targets. Now, while my MI1 was in the air, using just targets is fine because it makes the Jangus very accurate. But what I should have done is basically use these Jangus to like barrage all of these towns while I was while they were just sitting there, because at the moment they're doing nothing. But I could have easily just selected them and told them to fire position onto this compound, for example, and oh look, there is a couple of Shoju Buntai squads in there, which would have been annihilated by the power of the 100mm cannons from the Jangus. It's something I really should have taken advantage of, but it's been a long time since I've actually made use of ships, and therefore I didn't exactly think about doing it until later in the game. Now, I sent my MI1 over to the left here. It reveals 3 Hachukai Shikis and a couple of Shuju Buntai squads defending this bridge. And the reason I sent the MI1 over there was simply to try and find out where I could attack next. Simply, I should have attacked into Foxtrot because I have the overwhelming fire support of now 4 Jangus. However, moving over and attacking on the left may take him by surprise. So I decided to have a little probe with a Z9A, which is carrying some Lijuan. Now this is going to fly all the way out to sea and hopefully come round behind Juliet. These WZ551s are now heading towards this bridge, knowing that there's a couple of Shuju Buntai squads in here. I'm pretty confident that I'll be able to take them out with the WZ551s and a large amount of Tangushasha. I've got the recon here, which did spot a infantry squad moving over to the right side of this compound, which again gave me the idea that there was going to be more infantry in the area, and therefore I decided to bring in 3 J5s to napalm the far side of the river. Now I have watched Bolt Source's video, and he did question why I napalmed just as I sent over my WZs. Now the reason being is that by napalming I dislodged the enemy infantry. It puts my WZs in a very good position to destroy any infantry that retreats from the flames. So in this case, I spot the two Shuju Buntai squads, which I assumed would run in this direction. And we managed to destroy that. We also managed to get a kill onto the Chumat squad that tries to take out a couple of my WZs, and I get a couple of kills here just with the napalm. And now that I know that there is Hachukai Shikis here, which I reconned earlier, I'm pretty confident that my tanker Shashao can take those out. And that's why I left the tanker Shashao on the bridge while the napalm was there. It wasn't accidentally stopping myself, it was intentionally stopping them. So that as soon as the napalm disappeared, I would be able to annihilate the Hachukai Shikis with the tanker Shashao. Now here I send forward a BJ212, which arrives just on time as the napalm disappears. And the idea was that it would reveal these Hachukai Shikis for my units to destroy. Now one thing I didn't anticipate was how powerful the Hachukai Shikis would be again, and they wreck my WZs, which I thought would actually stand up a little bit towards them. Unfortunately, the 25 accuracy and the 2 HG power is or 2 AP power is nothing compared to the 30 accuracy and 3 AP power of the Hachukai Shiki, especially when the Hachukai Shikis have full front armor. So, yep, my WZs die very quickly, but my tanker Shashao don't. And, just as I predicted, they start going to work on the Hachukai Shikis. Now, I shouldn't have lost those WZs so easily. That was a bit naive of me and reckless, and gave away many free points, especially considering I'm currently behind 715 points now to Bolt Source's 1,165. My Z9A managed just to break through on the left past a KV-107, which was nicely placed to spot that. But now the Hachukai Shikis have been dealt with on this side. I'm basically going to try and get the tanker Shashao into this building, and I'm now reinforcing with a couple of ZTZ-85-2s, which are 75-point tanks. See, as soon as any Hachukai Shiki shows itself, just gets annihilated by the tanker Shashao squads, and that's what they're really good for. Just APCs in general, really, really powerful. Now, I brought up a YW381. I saw earlier that there were some units back here using the MI1, and I assumed it might be a command vehicle of some sort. So I decided to try and mortar that with the YW381. But I don't really make optimal use of this throughout the game. I kind of forget about it a lot of the time, as it's kind of like an old habit that I have, is just forgetting to use artillery. And over on the right here, I see a lot of use of anti-air aircraft, and these are pvAYjWs, which are the equivalent of a Japanese Phantom, and then he has 2 F-15Js, which are extremely strong anti-air supremacy aircraft. And the reason for that is it costs 165 points, but they have exceptional air detection, 1000 km/h speed, they have 40% ECM, and a 60% accurate infrared missile and a 50% accurate SEM-ACT radar missile. They are extremely strong, and I decide to go against them with 3 J7-2Ms. Now, not the best decision I ever made. These J7-2Ms do cost 55 points each, and I send one to attack each of his aircraft. And although all of my aircraft get a hit with their infrared missiles because they're elite, they simply don't do enough damage, and I probably should have sent multiple against one target, and then I would have got a kill much easier. Instead, I just lose out because the quality of his aircraft is a million times better than mine. and I simply just lose all of my air supremacy, which is a huge issue. It's put him another 110 points in the lead, and my Jangus are incredibly vulnerable now, because I don't have enough air myself in order to contest if he decides to attack me there again. So now Bolt Source is bringing up some even more Hachikai Shikis, but Tank Shashao still going to work on those. Something they're incredibly good at. I bring in a Changu on the left, again naively thinking that I would be able to get away with that. And although he does hit a couple of nice hits onto the Shoju Bantai, the use of these 3 anti-ship aircraft from Bolt Source just annihilates that, no problem, giving him another 160 points. And at this point, I'm just throwing the game away. He's 1,595 points to my 900. And that is a deficit that is extremely hard to deal with in this kind of game where there is a lack of corridors that you can use in order to attack the enemy and press your advantage. So here, although I am basically winning, it's not significant enough to make a large impact on the game. Brought over a J7 2M. This was brought in to attack some of the anti-ship aircraft, and for some reason I told it to try and kill this KV-107, but basically just got it shot down as it flew over the majority of Bolt Source's AA, and that just suicided, and there goes my last J7 2M. And it's singular moves like that that really start to put me behind during the game. So at this point, I should have really invested in more AA, but then again, it wouldn't have necessarily been the right choice to make, because he's making use of a lot of anti-aircraft, and therefore they aren't going to be a threat against my ground targets, which is where the anti-air that I would use would be. Anyway, I bring in the SU-27SK, and that gets picked off by one of these F-15Js with the help of the F-4EJ, and yeah, that was the only strong anti-air aircraft that I had on my deck, and now that's gone as well. Ideally, I should have used it with the J72Ms, but again, I was being reckless. I thought that that was safe. I thought that it would be able to take out the F-14EJ on its own, but it didn't. And now, I'm having to deal with 4 M41A1s. Now these are nice 10-point Japanese tanks, and I've got some pretty strong ZTZ-85s, which are pretty powerful 75-point tanks. Now this one took a side armor hit, so it is down 5 HP, but I am managing to pick off these M41A1s very easily. So I decided to just go and push against them, and see if I can pick off the last one so I can stop them harassing my tank Shashao. Turns out that doesn't really matter, as Bolt Source has now turned to artillery in order to do some more damage to my tank Shashao squads. As I move up this damaged ZTZ, the M41A1 gets the first shot, and you can see that a 10-point tank kills one of my 75-point tanks. Doesn't happen the same with my second tank, but still that is a large blow, because now that basically makes his 40 points worth of tanks win because they managed to kill a 75-point tank. And now my ZTZ has bumped into Shoju Bantai and these Hachikai Shikis, and let's just say that doesn't last very long. Yeah, that was a huge mistake. As soon as I destroyed that last M41A1, I should have just brought it back, but I didn't. Either way, I've decided to basically replenish these Tank Shashao squads now that they were out of ammo and a bit depleted from the artillery strike. And I've decided to bring up a couple more Tank Shashao squads in order to face off against any more troops that decide to contest Echo. Because the last thing I want is to lose my stream of reinforcement points in Echo. So that's why I'm keeping a presence on this side of the river, so that he can't place a CV in here without being at risk. Now I finally make the sensible decision of attacking on the right side. I've got 4 ZTS 63-2s, and they are heading up towards Foxtrot with the help of a PGZ 95, which is an anti-aircraft unit. I've also got a couple of Z88s coming up, which are the 60-point Chinese tanks that you can get. They have 40% accuracy and 15 AP power with 2,100 meter range. Pretty nice tanks for 60 points. And I like to make use of them occasionally as the Chinese. I decided to wait with the ZTSs before attacking into Foxtrot. And that's why I placed them into this forest while the other reinforcements arrive. Now up here, basically one of my Mi-8Ts that I tried to sneak around the back got sniped out by Bolt Source's aircraft. I've got a ZTZ85-3 here, which is a 125 point tank. And basically he takes 2 front armor shots from Bolt Source's Nanoyon Shiki Gs. And with the Hachukai Shikis on the flank, I again lose that. That's another 125 points in Bolt Source's pocket. And he's now decided to use smoke to press onto my Tank Shashao. A really good move from him. Now moving forwards, my ZTQ managed to spot out the 2 Shuju Buntai squads finally. And that basically enables me to destroy them with the Jiangsu. And now, because of the use of smoke here, I'm forced to bring in my J5s to napalm a line in front of my own troops to stop his advance while the smoke is still there. Now one of my J5s does get shot down because of this. The other one, or the other 2, managed to get away just fine. And now that basically creates a screen through which Bolt Source cannot attack onto my Tank Shashao. Now meanwhile on this side, my ZTQ is still doing a good job. I brought these ZTSs across because they're amphibious, across the water to join it. And the ZTQ is having fun destroying the occasional unit, but with the use of these Chu mats, you can see that they are very strong against ships, like I said earlier. So I decided to basically retreat one of the Jiangsus that was being targeted by the Chu mat squads, and I decided to bring up a Muna in order to resupply some of these. But with the use of these 3 anti-ship aircraft again, there's just too many missiles. My Jiangsu gets annihilated. Another 160 points into the enemy's pocket. I decided to just go for it. The ZTSs pushing across the bridge. We managed to actually destroy those Chu mat squads quite successfully with fire position. And my PGZ is here to defend from enemy air attack, and that actually spots out these 2 AH-1Ss, which is really good. But then gets pinned down by the use of these 203 SPs from Bolt Source. So I've got this MI1 coming up to try and spot out the enemy's movements, because I'm pretty desperate at this point. The enemy's on 2,500 points to my 1,000 440 and there is only 4 minutes left in the game. But the napalm has subsided on the left, and my tanker Shashao facing against the Shouju Buntai. And actually in this sort of close quarters, the tanker Shashao don't really stand much of a chance. But luckily, they're still doing a serious amount of damage to the enemy's armoured vehicles on that side. I actually managed to spot, for the first time, his CV Alpha. I am now fast moving the ZTSs to go and chase that. And my PGZ gets destroyed on this bridge finally after being stunned for ages. And I've had to retreat these Jangus because they took too much damage from the HGMs, and now they are very vulnerable to aircraft, with there only being 3 of them. So the ZTSs are coming up, and I don't continue to move them towards where I saw the CV, and this enables them to get picked off by the AH-1S, and that is another 100 points into Bolt Source's pocket. Tanker Shashao still doing really good on the left. I brought in my J5s again to provide some more napalm strikes onto his forces. This has actually enabled me to hold out at Echo much more than I actually had hoped I would be able to. And now I brought in a Fabio. Another reckless move really, because he's been using infrared AA the whole time, and this Tan Sam short arrow basically has a field day shooting that down as 2 infrared missiles hit, and that is another large amount of points into the enemy's pocket. Now I've got a Z9A here, which is worth a lovely 70 points, and as that gets destroyed, victory goes to Bolt Source, and congratulations to him. So, actually the first loss in a while that I've shown on the channel. Last game was actually a draw, so I don't know if that counts, but either way, a really interesting game there that I played against Bolt Source, and I really enjoyed playing it. It's just that in a lot of ways, there was many things that I could have done to avoid losing so badly. I think in the long run, I would have lost anyway, just by the way he played, and by the way in which he used cheap tanks, APCs, and infantry in order to press his advantage, whereas I was using more expensive units throughout the game, which basically made it a lot easier for him by taking advantage of my own mistakes, because if I do make mistakes, then they're going to cost a lot more than if he makes mistakes. So the idea was that I should have used my Jangus a lot more defensively to begin with, to make sure that they couldn't get picked off by the anti-ship aircraft that he used. And I probably should have been a lot more careful with my tanks. Throughout the game I threw away way too many. And it was actually pretty embarrassing. But either way, I really wanted to show you guys the faults of my gameplay in this particular one, and hopefully you guys will have learnt from it. I certainly did, and seeing it from Bolt Source's point of view was actually pretty interesting as well. So make sure you go check that out on his channel. Again, channel link in the description. Either way, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.